Hello everyone. You don't need me to tell you that events are the backbone of Azur Lane. That little trickle of content that keeps us playing and spending, keeping live service games like this alive. But I've been thinking, which do I think are the best? Full disclosure, I will be ranking events themselves with a heavy bias towards story. External factors like skins will have little bearing on events placement. Also, side events like the cruise ship that we just got are not here because I didn't think to include them so I was almost done. Maybe another video? Sorry. But with that preamble over and done, let's get started. Opening us up at number 5 is Light of the Martyrium. The talks on reunifying the Alliance are ongoing, but one night the commander encounters a strange girl in his accommodation. She leads him to the two Queen Elizabeths and Richelieu, the former having hatched a plan to obtain vital information on the true enemy, the X, and the latter assembling a team to protect him from potential dangers. Taking QE Meta's train, they head to a spatial impact site and manifest the concept of death in order to hunt down the girl's whale, a colossal arbiter rigging containing an equally enormous database. Admittedly, this one may be recency bias, hence why it's at number 5. And despite not progressing the story very much, the reveals in here will be extremely important going forward, much like another event on this list. But what's here is very good. Miss D is a brat, but despite that she's not all that annoying. Quite entertaining, actually. Love her little moron spat with Alsace, and how proud the latter is at winning that. Honestly, the character interactions in this one are great all around. And of course, we get our first look at the X. We've seen glimpses in the gazers from Four Scales and Snow Realm, as well as the pre-number X in Affordance Before Eclipse. But this is our first real look at the true threat. It's also the reveal of Awakening, the much rumoured and hinted to key to taking them down. The recap Elizabeth gives at the start I'm sure is much appreciated, as is the much better explanations for the high concept stuff that litters Azur Lane's story. All in all, pretty good, even if it being so recent may have coloured my views into putting it on here. In 4th place, Scherzo of Iron and Blood. The war is in full swing and Bismarck has just used a siren superweapon to sink Hood. She's made an escape, but the Royal Navy is in hot pursuit, determined to put her beneath the waves. Bismarck has allowed the Abyss to stare into her, and has it forced upon herself as she makes her last stand. Scherzo is a very small event. Not a whole lot happens, but its focused scope allows for some great drama, as we see the deal with the devil Bismarck is forced to take for her country's survival, and her burgeoning, almost adopted parent relationship with U-556. Adding to the drama is her being chased down by a furious Royal Navy, wanting her to face trial for her at the time presumed murdering of Hood. And the payoff is just great. Bismarck rejecting the Silent Awakening protocol and choosing a warrior's death, all the while 556 makes a mad dash to save her lord. Not to mention the soundtrack. All of these have pretty great music, but Bismarck's Last Stand stands among the most iconic music pieces in Azur Lane. Really hope that jukebox update gets added soon so I have an excuse to talk about it. It all culminates into one of Azur Lane's best. In 3rd place, Crimson Echoes. Way back in the past, Nagato holds a naval exercise to determine who will replace her as the future flagship of the Sakura Empire. Rivals Amagi and Kaga are in contention to take the title as the leaders of the two teams. But after Amagi wins, it's revealed that, due to the Washington Naval Treaty, the two capital ships will be converted into aircraft carriers, while the rest will be scrapped. Kaga runs off into a mirror sea to fire her guns one last time. Crimson Echoes is a very interpersonal story. Taking place so early in the timeline, the greater threat of the Sirens barely exists, and the war hasn't started yet. It's just the Foxes and their own issues. Karga's social Darwinism versus Amagi trying to make her successor due to her degenerating health. It's about the legacy that Amagi leaves behind as her time runs out, as her sister along with Karga take up her mantle, and going out on your own terms. And despite that, this small interpersonal story and Amagi's passing at the end serve as the impetus for the whole Sakura side plot. Honestly, I wish I was there at the time to properly experience this in Scherzo. Reading this transcript off the wiki and the War Archives dump doesn't make it hit as hard as it probably would have if I was there at the time. I probably would have thought of them the same way many veteran players do. There's quite a gap between these three and my top two. Speaking of... Coming in at number 2 is The Fool's Scales. It's the final day of the World Expo, and the commander has arrived in time for the closing ceremony. An unsettling dream of things to come, and Marco Polo makes her move, finally putting in motion all that scheming and preparing that's been building up to this. The arrival of her god and the birth of a new Roman Empire, with her as its emperor. It's up to the commander to rally the forces around the Mediterranean and put an end to the false god before it's too late. All the while Clemenceau works in the shadows to undermine her friend's plot and reunite her country. Oh boy, a lot to say about this one. The Fool's Scales is everything Rondo at Rainbow's End tried to be taken to the next level. The scope is big, the stakes are high, and every faction is here. Minus Tempesta, but they barely existed at the time. It's the big payoff to all Marco's scheming and the French reunification efforts. It's like the Azur Lane equivalent to an Avengers movie, a summer blockbuster of an event with a massive cast, all coming together to give us our first taste at the real bad guys. It truly feels like the final climax to a story arc, and the beginning of its next chapter. It's exciting in a way very few Azur Lane events are, and filled with great moments. Rishi and Jorn's reunion, Clem being extra summoning Conquest, she did not need to blow up a volcano. Rishi swearing loyalty to her people, not her crown at her coronation. Double Helena and double Memphis. Veneto wanting to strangle Marco and being so done with her at the end is hilarious. Jean telling Clem to go fuck herself for ordering her to foreign allies made her stock rise massively in my books. And of course, the whole Azur Lane coming together as one big fleet. Good stuff all round. Love it. That being said, this 45 chapter behemoth is not without its flaws. Despite, or rather because its massive cast, it doesn't utilise the new ships well. Kassan and Goishin get some stuff to do early on, and Clem is obviously the star, but the rest get maybe 4 lines between them. And Clemenceau is another Crimson Axis Ara Ara chestmaster, who was actually good all along. This is the second big event in a row that has one of those in a key role, but I'm willing to overlook it in this case, because Clem is very proud of her work as the leader of the Holy Iris' Shadow, and almost revels in playing the villain, making her way more entertaining than Friedrich ever was. But please, for the love of God, don't do this shit a third time with Musashi. She doesn't have nearly the sauce that Clem has that makes her so fun to watch. Before we arrive at my number 1, here's a few honourable mentions. Rondo at Rainbow's End. It's alright. Pretty good actually, but the Fool's Scales just does everything better on top of having a larger scope and more interesting premise. Like yeah, FDG's theme is good at getting you hyped for the big battle, but there's a reason they keep bringing back Final Battle Unity instead. I just like other events more. Snow Realm Peregrination is another one. It's kind of Fool's Scales 2 Antarctic Boogaloo, but it gives us some decent world building for our timeline instead of the Alpha timeline. And it's nice to have an event that's a direct continuation instead of spread out but loosely connected. Commanding a battle for the fate of the world in Antarctica from France is pretty cool too. Ashen Simulacrum feels like the first event to actually move the story along, and the harbour defence stages are the most engaging event gimmick we've had. Codivod of Dawn's Reign is a great deep lore event, really building on the sneak peeks we got in Dreamwakers and the Opsci files. Finally, Dreamwakers Butterfly. The first UR event, the introduction of our favourite sleepy Tsukuyomi fox, our first sneak peek at the Alpha timeline, our first hint that something worse is out there as our final boss. Alright, no more blue balling. Taking the crown at number 1 is Parallel Superimposition. Within the Eagle Union's Sea of Stars facility, the commander tries clearing the abnormal data within Anchorage's hull by connecting to it via the reality lens. Clipping out of bounds, he encounters a recorder AI, before learning that a threat is chasing him inside, finding himself trapped in a parallel world of superimposed memories of a future long gone. Navigating the future in New York and Samos Island, he learns of being a researcher in this future, the Type 2 rigging he developed, and meets Doctors Anzil and Aus, the respective creators of the Ship Girls and Sirens, all while trying to find out what's going on and a way back to reality. Parasup really has it all. It opens with some slice of life and light comedy, then throws in a cheeky naval exercise to turn up the heat. All the while it continues to reinforce that niggling feeling that none of this is real, none of this is right. They were just under attack, and escaping, only now to be gallivanting around a futuristic New York. The second half drops an enormous lore bomb before ratcheting up the stakes, with the reveal that the devil is one of the few real things oncoming for the commander. All the while, playing with our heartstrings with Yorktown, who is alive and well again but so clearly wants to be promoted to Wifetown, but can tell deep down something isn't right with the person she loves, leaving us all but waiting for her to learn the truth that she's not real, and that if the man before her is that same person, he doesn't remember their time together. Only to finally hit us one more time at her reunion with Enterprise, and the implications that the real Yorktown remembers what happened in the reality lens. It's one of the best written events in the game, simultaneously hitting us in the feels and giving us insight on how the Arbiters and Type 2s work. Not to mention finally allowing us to meet Anzil and Oust, or the implications of the commander's past as their research assistant. Or that with recent information, the Siren's acronym Anti-X was a lot more literal than we thought. It gives us the mystery of how we're going to get out of here, alongside Hornet wing-womaning her sister, and Memphis Meta getting the shit hugged out of her, she needs it. My only real nitpick is that they should have brought back Bismarck's last stand for Yorktown's sacrifice to really twist the knife. After all, they brought back Signal for Enterprise and Yorktown's reunion. But besides that, it's one of the best stories in Azur Lane, and my absolute favourite event since its release. That's all I've got for today. Give me your lists if you want, and I'll catch you later. Fair winds and following seas.